But there you go. Queen, perfect example. That's polyphony. When you have multiple melodies working together that create harmony, but the melodies themselves could be single. You can take the melodies, you can take any one of these melodies and play it yourself and go, oh, that's a good melody. I like that. Well, you know, I mean, let's not just talk about it, let's cue it up. That'll be easy. Tell me if you, I'm sure everyone's heard the song, but you got to
Get tough! No annual fee! Just dial the numbers. Tough. No, okay. Make the call. Yeah. You got it. Make the call. Come on!
Sorry about the
No tough talks necessary. Only
Alright,
Discover has no annual fee on any
pick
card.
your part. What part do you want to sing?
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. I'm just a poor boy, because I'm easy come, easy go, little high, little low. Any way the wind blows doesn't really matter to me.
I'm going to be disappointed when I stop. But there it is, polyphony. It's right there. And you know what they call that? It's rock music. No, it's not. It's not rock music. You know, it's 13th century sacred, you know, church music. No, it's not, Mr. Smith. It's Queen. Okay, it's Queen. But isn't it interesting that that song, it's right there in the top 10 or 15 of all-time radio songs played. Right there with Stairway to Heaven, Hey Jude by the Beatles, Bohemian Rhapsody. And Bohemian Rhapsody is so far away removed from rock and roll, you know, except for the part where it goes you know, you can be a head knocker for like that minute and a half. It's there. But that's what makes the song so great. And that's what you can do with music. You don't have to obey the rules. And this is why my students love my class. Because you know what? You don't have to obey the rules either. But you need to know what the rules are first. That's the key. That's why you go to school. Everybody in here has a different favorite color. Everybody in here has a different dream. Everybody has a different hope. And how you get there, how that path is going to be, well, that has yet to be determined. But you need to know what the rules are on your path. Because if you don't know what the rules are, then you can get lost. You can get, it becomes all helter-skelter. I was told all the time when I was coming up through college in music school, when I was taking composition classes, when I was studying music history, and when I was studying all this stuff, you need to know the rules first before you can break them. Because if you know how everybody else did it, and you know why they did it, and you know what the results of their work was, then you'll know if your work is copying what they've done, or is it something fresh? Are you doing something really new? Or are you just copying somebody else's? How many of you know what your license plate says? What's it say?
It says Harveston because it was my uncle's car, and that's in our church because the pastor.
Okay. What about the regular North Carolina license plate? Just a plain old standard plate. What's it say on it? Yeah. First in flight. Why? Because of the Wright brothers. But where were they from? Ohio. So why do we get to put that on our license plate in North Carolina? Because they flew at Kitty Hawk. Did they follow the rules? No, they didn't. They followed their own path. And imagine how that went. Orville and Wilbur Wright. What was their business? What did they do? I mean, they didn't have like an aircraft company in Ohio. They did something else. Anyone know? Well, come on, really? You got to know this. How can you not know this in North Carolina? Joshua, what was their business?
They had like green bikes, I think.
Yes, they had a bicycle shop. Well, that's like making jets, no problem. Same thing. You know, I'll just make a 747, put it right over there next to the Schwinn. How'd that work, Amy? Wilbur, let's go down to Frank's at the hardware store and we'll get some stuff, we'll build an airplane and start an airline industry. Oh, wait a minute, we gotta fix Mr. Johnson's two-wheeler first. Oh yeah, okay. And I'm seriously, how did that work? Do you think they got any help? No, the guy down at the hardware store thought they were crazy. What are you, airplane? What are you, out of your mind? You guys fix bikes. Go fix your bike. And fix mine, by the way. I got a flat guy. Fix that airplane. Get out of here. Do you ever see their planes? It's like, really? That thing flew? It looks like it's made out of paper, paper and wires and stuff. Like, how the heck did they do that to get that thing off the ground? But they did, because they believed in themselves. They knew what the rules were. They knew how to build things. They knew how sprockets works and change and stuff. So they took what they knew. They knew what their rules were and expanded on that. And how do we know it works? Because nobody else had flown up to that time. You've seen those pictures, right, with the one guy with the thing that's going like this, and the other guy's doing this, you know? And we got the Legend of Icarus and stuff, and he just jumps off the cliff. I'm going to go fly now. Yeah! That didn't work. So all of you have different paths. All of you are going to have to buy into that work hard thing and hard work, because if you don't, you won't get there. But there is numerous examples everywhere around you of how you can take this theory of studying this music and apply it to your life. When Linda and Emmylou and Dolly put that song together that I'm so passionate about, that is so extremely beautiful, they're using the rules that were set upon them hundreds and hundreds of years earlier. But then they sang it in their own way. They put themselves into it. Freddie, the same thing. Have you ever heard a song that sounds like Bohemian Rhapsody? I never have. That's about as unique a piece of music as there is. And that's the way Freddie was. That's the kind of person he was. And that's why we like it. Wow, Bohemian Rhapsody, great. I mean, let's face it, the whole, the whole movie with Mike Myers and the whole thing, it's based on coming off that song. So that the song itself becomes an industry. And it's interesting that way. All right. So, let's get to the textbook, because it's important. Now, what we haven't talked much about is the secular. And the textbook starts on that the first time on page 49. And it's this idea of music at court. Over the long span of the Middle Ages, kings and barons gradually gained political power at the expense of the church. They also came to assume leadership in artistic matters. In the later Middle Ages, the princely courts joined the monasteries and cathedrals as major supporters of music. And this is hugely important, Because now what you see happening is that the music in the church is there to support God. But the music in the courts outside of church to support what? Well, we talk about love being the reason the music exists. We're singing love songs. That's the basis for why we're singing. But what are we really doing? We're dancing and we're having fun. Something we might call a social event. Because if the king or the baron or the rich folks, if they're having a party, they're not going to sing the same songs about God. We'll do that on Sunday. But it's Saturday night. What are we going to do? We're going to break out the wine. You know, we're gonna get dressed up, and you know, we'll take our one shower for the week or whatever, or the first shower, you know, that we've had in like a month, and we're gonna party. Just like you guys are gonna do this weekend, because it's a long weekend. Anybody going out of town this weekend? Anybody got plans? See? Plans, right? Party. Labor Day. You have no idea what that means. That just means party. Okay. Here's the other thing that's important to recognize. And it really is important. I want you to understand this. You guys aren't much different than the people that were around 800 years ago. You're really not. And you're not going to be much different than the people around 800 years henceforth, in the year like 2800. Or hopefully we'll get that far. And here's what I mean. All of you want to have food on your table. All of you want to have a roof over your head and feel safe when you go to sleep at night. You want to have a bed, someplace to lie your head, and not worry that something's going to happen to you during the night. That when the sun comes up tomorrow morning, you'll wake up and you'll have another day. You probably don't think about that much, but we pretty much, all of us, have those feelings. We want to feel like we are worthy inside to our community. Why else would you be here? You're trying to better yourselves. You're trying to pay it forward. You have hopes and dreams, and those hopes and dreams include the idea of being successful at your dream. And you might even want to be so successful that you'll be able to help other people. Have your own business, hire people, so that they will be able to grow and have their dream. So the whole idea of paying it forward. You have a classmate in here, a young lady who laid her life on the line. Her life. For you and your country. It's a huge responsibility, and I will be forever personally grateful to you, Alicia. Always. Now, that doesn't matter. Even, you know, we could go into great depth, and I won't. But you have to understand, there are people that are your fellow citizens that have given their lives, that have given everything they have, so that you can have the life that you have. They deserve that moment of silence, that respect. The ideas that I just spoke about of having safety, having a safe roof, having food on the table, and the great one that I didn't even mention, I'll mention now, is the idea of having someone to love and someone that loves you. Been around since time immemorial. 1,000 years, longer than that, a couple thousand, however you want to divide your time up. Humanity. Because this part of the class is a little bit hard to talk about because you're young. Most of you haven't had, quote, the love of your life, unquote, come into your heart yet. Some of you have. Some of you maybe even have lost that love, had your heart broken. Boy, doesn't that suck. But you've never felt more alive at that moment when you realize that, what do you mean you broke up with me? How can you do that? Well, it happens. And then, the opposite of that is that you're with another human being and they tell you that they love you and you say to them, I love you too. And at that moment, it's sort of like Tinkerbell just did pixie dust all around you because you feel it. You have no idea how to explain it. You don't even know what happened. It's just, there's another human being right next to you and it's almost as if there's no oxygen in the room. You can't even hardly breathe. All of us, for all time, have lived for those moments. And so, whether it's the year 2018 or the year 815 AD, it's the same thing. It's been that way. And as human beings, how do we celebrate that? We celebrate with music. We celebrate with dance, because if that person that loves you, that just told you that they love you and you love them, what do you want to do? You want to jump up and down. You want to hug each other. You want to dance. And yet, if I ask the class, which I will in a moment, how many of you like to dance? I bet maybe 30–40% of the class at most. How many of you know how to dance? Yeah, probably like 20%. Okay, guys, this is for you. How many of you guys know how to dance? Nobody will put their hand up. So what? It doesn't matter. It's part of humanity. Dance, music, celebration. How many of you in this class have ever been to a wedding? Did you go to the wedding reception after? Did they have music there? And did they have at one point during the ceremony, they say, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time we'd like to introduce Mr. and Mrs. Warren Smith in their first dance. And they come out and the groom, the bride and the groom, and they come out and they dance together. And what happens? Everybody applauds. All right, good job, nice. Is that true? Yes? Who came up with that idea? I have no idea, because it's been around for 1,000 years, or a lot longer. And you should see you guys right now, people smiling. He's just smiling right here, he's smiling. You know, smiling. Why? Because all of you right now, you have this image in your mind. You've seen that, you have that memory, or that thought of that happiness, that positive event in your life. You've either experienced it, seen someone else have it, imagined it, dreamed it. It's all good. And that's part of this class, music appreciation. I want you to appreciate what music can do in all of your lives. And what it does in your community, what it does in your family, what it does in your church, what it does in your town, all of these things. It's all a part of it. It's hard to get away from music in the world. It is. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So, continuing. Large groups of court songs have been preserved from the 12th and 13th century. We call it the Age of Chivalry. The noble poet-composers of these songs, we are told, also performed the songs themselves. They were called troubadours in the south of France, trouvères in the north, mine singers in Germany. Among them were knights, princes, even kings. even some of the most famous of all chivalric heroes, Richard I of England, known as the Lion-Hearted, he had a troubadour society, also allowed for women composers and performances, such as Countess Beatrice of Dieppe and Maria del Ventadorn. Now, right there is a significant difference. Because, as I said previously, the Roman Catholic Church was very strict on what women could do in the church musically. And as you just heard, in society, women were allowed. Women were allowed to compose, women were allowed to perform. It was certainly possible for women to have a musical presence that was not the same in the church. But here's what you also have to understand. This society spectrum where you have the kings and the princes and the barons, these people were not giving public music performances. In other words, if Richard the Lion-Hearted, you know, King Richard was having a party, that party wasn't open to the whole town. You know, everybody in London couldn't come. No. It was strictly the top shelf, very, very few people. The difference here is that those social events also were down to the peasants. Because if the peasants, I mean, it may be Saturday night at the king's palace, but it's also Saturday night at the peasant's house too. And if one of the peasants happened to be able to build some sort of stringed instrument, sort of like the one that we saw in class on Monday, and music was being made, so be it. It wasn't like they were going to come charging out of the castles and destroy the musical instrument and tell those people, stop singing, stop singing. No. You know, it's sort of like, Amy, you had your hand up for this weekend, you're going to a party. Do you expect that there will be the local gendarme to come and to sniff around and make sure nobody's breaking any rules? You know? Probably not, right? No. In fact, I would be willing to bet that most of you have probably, hopefully, never been to a social affair where the police did come. It doesn't happen very often. Now, unfortunately, occasionally when it happens, tragedy. You know, I mean, the news yesterday that the idiot sheriff in Texas who was called to break up a party ended up shooting into a car that was driving away, killed a 15-year-old boy, going to jail. Guilty of murder. You know? And it should be. Yeah, it's a party, man. Don't be shooting at the party. It's crazy. He lost his mind, and he can spend the rest of his life in jail. Good. And I say that because both of them, I have two sons. Both of them have been police officers, and my youngest still is. He's finishing his 13th year with the Los Angeles City Police. He's an LAPD cop. Boy, you should hear some of the stories. But he's a good police officer. The people of Los Angeles are lucky to have him. But I can guarantee you, he's not going to pull out his piece and start shooting cats in some car going by because some high school teenagers were having a party where the music was loud. Please. His name is Dana would laugh at that. It's like an idiot. So, the idea that music is only in the church, that music is only at the king's palace. No, that's not true. That's not true. What is true is that in the church, we're singing sacred music. We are worshiping God. We're singing about the Virgin Mary. We're singing about the goodness and the graciousness and the holiness of God. But when we're singing secular songs, when we're singing troubadours, when the mine singers in Germany are singing, what are we singing about? We're singing about love. And we're dancing. The music is more rhythmic. It's more, has more pulse to it. All right, so let me check my clock here. See how we doing. Okay. Any questions so far? All right, so it's important if you haven't started reading Unit 2, you're behind. I'm at Chapter 6 right now. Let me play you a troubadour song from the 12th century. I spelled it wrong. Goes throughout the whole thing. It's like that song that I played Monday. You have this, what we would call a pad, or the term an ostinato, which is a short musical phrase or motive that's repeated and repeated and repeated, and the guy then sings the melody over top of it. It's a homophonic form. So you have that sound. That right there. See, and that just repeats over and over. But listen to the translation, and you'll hear how different this music is. I have heard the sweet voice of the woodland nightingale, and my heart springs up so that all the cares and the grievous betrayals love has given me are softened and sweetened, and I would thus be rewarded in my ordeal by the joy of others. In truth, every man leads a base life. Who does not dwell in the land of joy? One who is false, deceitful, of low breeding, a traitoress, has betrayed me and betrayed herself. And that's, that's only a partial translation. But that's surely not a sacred song. and so if you think of that song, now listen to this song and you'll hear a similar musical pattern that continues all through it.